Paul Davey, what's the proposition that EMC offers to mobile service providers?
So from the mobile service provider point of view, there are a number of key challenges that the service providers are going through right now. Principally, all of them are trying to understand, in the new data-oriented world, what their role is in the market and how they find new sources of revenue within that, and equally importantly, within that data service, how they differentiate themselves in the space. So what EMC is focusing on is, well, those three things actually. It's focusing on how we help the operators to understand the role that they can play as service provider and the interface between the enterprise and the operator network, where the new value propositions are coming from. How they can differentiate themselves based on their understanding of their own networks and the network resources, as well as an understanding of their users and the actual customer community, the end user customer community, and how they can bring those things to bear together to drive new revenue streams.
What's driving the decision of service providers to implement new approaches? Is it purely financial? Is it performance related?
So the service providers really are being driven through the changes that are happening now through, the maturity of the market as much as anything else. And we now know that there are as many connected mobile devices out there as there are people on the planet. And that's driving market saturation, which of course is driving new challenges for the service providers to think about what their role is in growth terms. In actual fact, revenue growth for them has been pretty flat over the last few years, and margins have been substantially squeezed. So there is a key financial change, but above and beyond that, all of them are looking to service their customers better. And I think all of us would agree that there are better customer service propositions to be had there from the operators. We all know and experience that from the service providers that we work with. So I think new opportunities to service the customer better, new markets from new services, as well as controlling costs and improving their margins.
When we start seeing more M2M applications and the Internet of Things, there's a proliferation of connected devices. What's that going to do to a service provider's network? What additional pressures are they going to be facing?
Well, the service provider infrastructure is really stressed by data services. One of the joys of voice services and circuits, which is what we were used to, circuits are very predictable. A circuit is a circuit is a circuit. But in the data services market, it's very different. A video stream is very different to a piece of signaling data that you might see in a machine-to-machine context. So the network service providers have now got to understand what the data is being used for, and the behavior of their network infrastructure needs to be different depending on whether it's a piece of signaling data or a video stream. And the configuration of the network to optimize the usage of the asset and deliver the better customer service in that delivery process is quite difficult because the tools aren't there. The infrastructure doesn't actually do that very well. So what we're driving with all of the virtualization work that EMC has been leading, not just in the network and the data center, but virtualizing storage, virtualizing on all aspects of the IT business, but by virtualizing those and extending that virtualization into the operator network, we can produce more flexible networks, more agility in service delivery, and more cost efficiency in the operations of the network.
So are your solutions applicable to small service providers as well as the large multinationals?
All service providers, regardless of how big or small they are, have got the same need. They all need to redefine their businesses, and our technology as EMC scales very well indeed. In fact, it's designed in a very modular fashion so that you can increase the scale of your capacity at a very, very granular level, which of course gives massive benefits to any size or scale of operator. So yes, of course, it will work with both very large operators and very small ones. In fact, the capital intensity of the operator, large or small, is very similar. Once you've got the network asset in place, once you've got some spectrum, or radio spectrum, then the capital intensity is pretty much commensurate with the scale of your business.
There's a deluge of data that a service provider has to deal with and cope with and understand. How do they go about analysing it?
The deluge of data, that's overwhelming everybody in the network space. And we hear the term big data, and the question of, well, how big is big? There's not an operator in the world, tier 1, tier 3, tier 4 operators, there's not an operator in the world that doesn't have big data. And it's not so much the absolute volume of data, it's also to do with the speed of that data as it comes off the network. So all the signalling data that is used to set up the relationship between a handset and the network infrastructure actually provides us with a very rich source of knowledge about the customer. But that's very low latency data. It happens very quickly, and the value of it is very, very short term. We also have quite a lot of high latency data, so things like billing records and history and all of the customer contact relationship with customers. So bringing those two elements together actually is quite complicated, and doing it in such a way that we can make use of that in real time requires some very highly complex processing of the data streams and matching and aligning of those data streams in real time, so that the operator can then respond during the lifetime of a particular service. So if it's a video streaming service, it may last a minute or two. If it's a phone call, it may only last, a few seconds. But within that time frame, the operator has the opportunity to provide additional services or offer improved customer experiences if they're able to analyse that data fast enough, and that's what we do for them.
And how does the move to LTE add to service providers' headaches?
Well, the move to LTE technologies adds to the headache of the service providers, because the expectation of the consumer is that this is going to be a much bigger, much faster pipe, which of course it is, but they also expect that there'll be a whole load of new services which begin to come down that pipe. And so the service provider, the expectation of the service providers is that they're going to provide a whole range of new services. But there's not a whole range of new services that are out there, and certainly in the short term, the cost of an LTE connection is going to be probably somewhat higher than 3G. But nevertheless, people will use it for video streaming, and video is a data deluge in spades. It's unbelievable how much data is consumed by video. So the expectations are high, and the consequences are that actually for the operator, the volume of data on the network is going to be sky high. And consequently, they really need to use their assets much more cost effectively.
Paul Davey, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.